Really, thank you, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Talking about Web3 in crypto winter. Actually, what does Web3 mean to all of us? I want to start with a story, okay? I got a friend, his name is Kevin. And about 10 years ago, I viewed him as a Bitcoin speculator, okay? I rarely talked to him, which I regret a lot. I should talk to him more. 5 years ago, he called himself a D-app project founder. I said, what is that about? What do you mean by D-app? And I started to talk to him more. And recently, I'll be very proud to introduce him to all my investor network, all my friends as an ambitious Web3 entrepreneur. Still get a sense what actually Web3 means. And a lot of people actually think this as evolution of Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3. I think it's more than that. I think it's a revolution. So that's why I call it the future of internet. And why is that? So today I'd like to talk about 3 things. 1 dream, 2 numbers, and 3 actions that you can take away with. First, come to dream. So what are we looking at in Web3? I perceive Web3 is a digitalization of human civilization. Let's pause for a second. What does human civilization mean here in a grander scale? Are we talking about the Great Wall in China? Are we talking about the great art piece by Da Vinci, the Mona Lisa? Are we talking about the Iliad, the great poet, etc.? Everything is correct, but needs something tangible, measurable, so that we can see how human civilization has been evolved and developed through the decades. I use GDP per capita. It's economic terms. If you look at that number seriously, you'll be surprised. In the 5,000 years in human history, only until the last 250 years, you start to see the GDP per capita is growing positively, in the positive range, which means 95% of human history, you have either a stagnant growth or negative growth. And why is that? What happens 250 years ago? Is there magic? Yes, if you call it magic. Guess what that is? The first industrial revolution. And thanks to the steam engine, that's the power. About 100 years later, you got the second industrial revolution, thanks to another power, electricity. You can all guess we are in the third industrial revolution. And what is that? What is powered by? People say it's internet, but I think it's much more than internet. I call it computing power. It's quite, I would say, not easy term to put in perspective. What does computing power mean? But if I step back a little bit, let's think about what's the most headache problems among all the global leaders, government officials, and job growth, fiscal balance, income imbalance, and economic growth. So how would you drive the economic growth with the most efficient ways? Most countries nowadays, including US, Japan, Europe, China, etc., they put in debt. Just keep piling the debt into their fiscal deficit, trying to generate economic growth in GDP terms. There is a statistic, if I recall correctly, $1 increase in debt only adds to $0.3 to $0.4 in GDP growth. And that is actually going lower each year. So the incremental effect is deteriorating. So that's why computing power is important, because $1 invested, you got $3 to $4 GDP growth. It's 300 to 400% return on investment. Where would you find that? And not just return is high, the speed, the growth is also huge. In the last 5 years, the computing power has been growing at a CAGR of 30% each year. In the next 5 years, we are looking at 50% growth in computing power. So which means it will be 8 times what we have now 5 years later. How amazing is that? Oh my God. So I think this is called the new forces of production. You need something new to increase your productivity. And then it comes to the question, okay, why we need such a computing power? What do we need for? To compute on what? Data. These are simple terms. Everybody knows data has been growing exponentially in the last 3-4 decades. If I recall correctly, 30 years ago when I got my first computer, it's called the Intel 802826, I think. The total storage on that computer cost me $1,000. Guess how much? 1 megabyte, okay? 1 megabyte. And guess what you have in your smartphone right now? 1/4 of a terabyte. So everybody here combines with your smartphone storage is actually less than what a Tesla autopilot car is able to collect within 1 hour. So that's how much data we're talking about, and it's still growing. How many Tesla cars we're selling each year, right? If globally we are selling 100 million cars and all of those will be autopilot, just imagine how much data we are talking about. So that's why we need these new forces and these new means of production to increase our productivity. But you have power, which is computing power. You have data, which is the means of production. But you need something else. The relationship between these two is critical. And I call it algorithm. It's the new relations of productions. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum computing, all these new algorithms will be developed. And Web3 is also one of these. So this is all sorts of algorithms that's going to take us on this journey for the digitalization of human society. You start to think about, okay, so this is if there's a big dream you're going to have, are we here too late? Are we still early? Let's come to this number. A big number and a small number. 400 trillion. So this is a combined wealth on this planet, the human wealth, okay? $400 trillion, that's the number I see in 2020. 2021, I think there's a bump about $30 trillion. So what does that mean if you don't work in finance or have a perspective? It will take the whole country of the United States and its diligent people to work 20 years on the current pace, continuously, 20 years to accumulate such wealth. And for China, it will take the whole country and more diligent people to work for 30 years to accumulate such wealth. So that's huge. 50% of those, if you are curious, is financial wealth, stocks, bonds, cash, etc. And the rest is real assets, real estate, collectibles, etc. So that's the big number. 0.002 is a small number. What does this mean? The current market cap of a cryptocurrency, if you just use a measure, is about $1 trillion. That's 0.2% of the human wealth we just talked about. So you tell me whether we are early or we are late. So if you think the dream is good, we're still reasonably early, if not too early. I got 3 actions that I think you can start to think about what you can do from today. Skin the game. That's a very simple terms. Just put a little bit of risk on, whether it's open a wallet, whether it's get some currencies, I'll start to explore what's going on DeFi, Metaverse, schedule, NFTs, etc. Whatever that is, skin the game. But don't risk too much. I advise you to work with the leaders and talk to them and see what lessons they have learned and see what traps they have experienced and try to avoid those if you can. And lastly, stay humble. So what does this mean? This is not just like stay humble, you want to be humble. If you think there's 4 types of knowledges in this world, what we know that we know, what we know that we don't know. This is simple, straightforward. But there is a thing called we don't know that we know. And the trickiest part is called we don't know that we don't know. The unknown knowns is probably that is going to give you the black swan event. So stay humble. I don't say black swan is always a bad thing. It can be a positive. On the positive side, if you stay on the right side. So stay humble. So just to recap, we talk about the big dream, the digitalization of human civilization. And if you're with me and you really want to get involved with this computing power and infrastructure, you can work with us. We'll talk more about this later. If you're more interested in the digital asset space, we can also work together. Our company called IDEG, we have something that I think definitely can give you some insights on. So here is Atlas, that's where my hat is talking about. We're building the foundation of a digital future. Whatever you have heard about or used, the metaverse, the MetaMask, the NFT device that's built on these blockchains, which is on the second layer, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, Avalanche, Solana, etc. And these are built on our infrastructure globally. Computing power, storage, API services, we're talking about that. We're currently operating in 6 countries globally, providing various services. Just in case if you're interested, please come to me. IDEG is our asset management arms. So if you want to get a skin in the game in the digital assets from an investment perspective, we have a Times series. It's a strategy that is going to help you navigate your investment journey through the cycles. Whether it's a bull market, a bear market as we have now, or you're not sure what market we're in, you want to stay market neutral, that's also fine. Or you don't care what the market cycle is, you're indifferent, get on that. I have to say, since I joined, I find actually 90% of the peers in this asset management is providing most of the simple products long only, sometimes with leverage. And we have seen some of our, I would say, friendly peers actually going to suffer a little bit during this down cycle. But we know there's always going to be a cycle, either on the upside or downside. So we have to navigate through this cycle because it's still very early. We don't be off the boat. If you want to talk to more industry leaders, welcome to our conference in Miami, okay? It's going to be November 28th, 30th. Just one day before the Art Basel, if you know about it. It's the biggest event in the art world. And it will be in Miami. What's this conference about? I will call it it's the Web3 Davos. But it's not in Switzerland. It's in Florida. You're going to see not only the Web3 experts, leaders, but you're also going to see the traditional industries, healthcare, real estate, logistics, food and beverage, and also going to see the government officials from different continents, regulators, Africa, Latin America, Middle East, Europe, Asia, of course America as well. So that's why you can talk more with different leaders and explore the $30 trillion Web3 opportunities. Hope to see you all. Thank you very much.